Hello everybody on the beautiful website YouTube, this is your Uncle Welcome here, and today, in preparation of Denis Villeneuve dropping a sequel starring Ryan Gosling, Jared Leto, Dave Bautista, Robin Wright, and others, we are reviewing the original, the sci-fi cult classic from 1982 by Ridley Scott. Of course, the movie I'm talking about is Blade Runner. So, the basic plot and premise of Blade Runner is quite simple. It's a world where there are so-called replicants, androids you can say, artificial human beings that are trying to revolt. 6 of them have come to Earth to meet their maker, and there is a cop called Deckard who is working for the LAPD in the futuristic Los Angeles, who gets the task to basically exterminate them, or to retire them. His goal is to chase them down and kill them all by one before they can meet their maker. So yeah, like I said, the plot of Blade Runner is kind of like a standard sci-fi plot, you could say. It's nothing too original per se. What is original about Blade Runner, or at least back then in the early 80s, is the actual themes and the actual things they want to talk about, what they want to bring up. There are a lot of philosophical discussions that could be had about this movie, and it's a very bleak, sad, but at the same time very, very beautiful movie. This is a movie that is a very conflicting movie to me. I cannot say that I love it fully, but I can say that I absolutely love parts of it. I can also say that I think some parts of it are quite boring and really a snooze fest. So this is going to be a review where I'm not really going to be praising it to heavens and not really bashing it and saying that it's overrated as fuck, because this is a movie that is special. It really is, and I'm very much looking forward to a sequel because Denis Villeneuve is my favorite director right now, and of course I think this is a universe that could be expanded on, and there's a lot to do with it. So let's start off with the really good things about this movie. The soundtrack is just fucking incredible. It is 100% amazing. One thing that I love about the soundtrack is that it feels like it blends very standard futuristic sci-fi soundtrack that we love, you know, with this kind of techno styled soundtrack, also mixed with some of the more ancient epic soundtracks, and they kind of blend it all together, and you get this kind of ominous vibe, you can say. It's very spooky, haunting, beautiful, and kind of sad and tragic at the same time, and it just blends and mixes so perfectly and fits the imagery, the beautiful, incredible visuals that are so impressive for its times. It's just a beautiful film to look at and a beautiful film to listen to, really. And what I love about Blade Runner is that yes, it's an old movie, but the effects hold up so fucking well. Compared to other sci-fi classics like Star Wars, you know, The Thing. Amazing effects in those movies for those times, but I don't think they hold up as well. I love them and they're impressive. And of course, they definitely have stand the test of times, but that's more of the story. Blade Runner is a movie where the visual stand its test of time really well, even though the movie is almost 40 years old now, or how much is it? 35 years old, I believe, if I'm not miscounting. That's just insane, because this movie looks like it really could have just been made some years ago. That's because that's just how well made it was. And I feel like that's one thing you gotta say about this. It has a very distinct look, which means that the movie's look and world doesn't really age, and it makes it feel timeless. And that's the amazing thing about the visuals and the world in Blade Runner, this futuristic version of Los Angeles. Now, of course, now people say, well, you've talked about the soundtrack, you've talked about the visuals, we want to hear more about the movie. What I can say about the movie is that I love that Harrison Ford brings in a more calm role. He's not an Indiana Jones, he's not a Han Solo, he's not this kind of, you know, cocky guy, he's not on a super action-packed adventures, he is on a very raw kind of detective murder mission that he's kind of forced to do. He's not really doing it because he wants to, but more that he's kind of forced to. And in this bleak world, you can say that it feels like most people do things they are just forced to and not what they really want to. I feel Harrison Ford is really good in this movie. I don't know if it's my favorite character he has, you know, his favorite portrayal or something, because it's a very kind of, you know, laid back role, it's a very quiet role, and his character doesn't get super fleshed out because the movie is more about the themes and philosophical discussions to be made, so to say. Rutger Hauer, though, there's one bad thing about Rutger Hauer in this movie. He's in it way too little, because he's in it for, I don't even think he has like 20 or 30 minutes screen time, I believe, but he is fan-fucking-tastic. I love Rutger Hauer. We've all heard the Tears in Rain scene, or seen it, because it's a classic scene, and it is one of the most beautiful and most well-acted scenes ever, in my opinion. And that is Rutger Hauer. Really, it is Rutger Hauer's show right there. And throughout the whole movie, he is fantastic, but that's like the epic climatic point of his performance. And I think he just really brings in this, person's just finding about his past, and trying to get a hold of it, trying to get to know what should I do now when I know about, I just want to live a normal life, but I can't. And that's very much up to him, because he is a replicant, he's an android, and he has to deal with that, but at the same time he just wants to be like everyone else, but he doesn't get accepted as everyone else. And I just think Howard portrays that very, very, very good. I also feel like the movie is, like I said, it's a very philosophical movie, and it's a movie you can have many open discussions about, but it does it in a more subtle and quiet manner. It's not all up in your face. I actually like some movies that do that up in your face, kind of forcing you to go that route. And I think that is also the reasons why so many people find this movie boring, because it's not a movie that's over-riddled with symbolism per se. It's very much a movie that just has this premise, and if you are interested enough and pay close attention, you're like, there are definitely a resemblance to this, and there are definitely questions to be had about these movies and the characters' motives and what they are doing, and overall about the universe we're watching. And like I said, it's a cold movie. It's cold, it's bleak, it's rainy, and just has this lonely atmosphere. It feels like, I don't know, it's very hard to describe if you haven't seen it. So these are the best positive things I can say about Blade Runner. Fantastic soundtrack, incredible visuals that are distinct and timeless. Performance by Rutger Hauer is amazing. Harrison Ford goes in a little bit more calm direction, which I really like. And I think the movie is just bedded up with some beautiful imagery that also lends to some interesting conversations about what really is humanity, and what does it mean to understand, what does it mean to know your surroundings, and can you actually shape your destiny, yada yada yada. I mean, there's so much things you can talk about this movie when it comes to discussions. But there are some things with this movie that I just have to mention. Like I said, this movie does actually quite bore me sometimes. There is one scene, for example, where Ford is having kind of getting a little bit touchy, or at least a little bit interested in a girl that he found out as a replicant in the beginning. And that scene is just so outdrawn. It's not necessarily what Ridley Scott is aiming for is bad, with this kind of oh, he's falling for a replicant even though he knows she's a replicant. It's more like, why does the scene have to be 10 minutes long? It feels a little bit saggy, and it doesn't really have a soundtrack to back it up either. Like I said, the soundtrack overall is just amazing, but the thing is, the soundtrack often puts a hold when these dramatic scenes come in, which means the scenes feels kind of quiet, which means that sometimes they get quite boring. And I also say the movie doesn't really have a gripping beginning, and I know some people say, are you fucking retarded? I can already see people reacting that way, because yes, the movie has the void cam test, how to test if someone is a replicant or not. So it has that replicant test, and then you have the replicant just going amok and just shooting down the cop who's investigating him, doing the void cam test. But at the same time, after that, we just get dumped down into a futuristic LA, and then we get to see, basically Harrison Ford as Deckard getting handed the mission, and then it just kind of moves slowly on from there. It doesn't really, pick it up very, very fast. A movie like The Shining, I could say, which is a movie some people will find boring, I think it has a very, very gripping beginning with its bombastic soundtrack and the aerial view we get of the car. Then when we get to the Overlook Hotel, we get Jack being shown around the hotel and hearing all these horrible things that have happened at the hotel, and at the same time we have Danny discussing with Scatman Crothers' characters about the shining power that he has. There's a lot of things going on there that makes you interested to see where it's leading to, whereas in Blade Runner, not really. Okay, we have a supposedly replicant, who we don't even know is a replicant at that moment, shooting down a cop. And then we just have Deckard getting handed the police missions and just slowly starting investigating. And so I would say the first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie moves very slow. But it does pick up and it does end on a high note for sure, and there are just some of the most quiet, subtle and beautiful scenes you will see in cinema. But at the same time, this movie gets a little bit boring, a little bit slow, and sometimes you wonder, are we going anywhere with this story or these characters? And that's the kind of thing. The characters are more there to portray the themes than rather the themes portraying the character, you could say. Fantastic soundtrack and impressive and striking visuals. This bleak, rainy, futuristic depiction of LA gives us a world to behold and a story that moves a little slow but leaves with impact. In the end, I'm gonna give Blade Runner an 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a thumbs up, and if you didn't, well, leave that big fat dislike. And I've been your Uncle Gurga. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more content. Bye bye.